Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. So today I want to talk about some of my anticipated book releases for the rest of 2021. So I think the last time I did this video was back at the end of 2020 for the first half of 2021. And since we are in June now, it is 6 months into the year, I thought it was about time to talk about all the books that I'm excited for that are coming out in the second half of 2021. So there's a few of these that come out like right at the end of June, but most of these are all like fall releases. And for all of these, I'll be going in the order that they're going to be published. So without further ado, let's get right in. All right, so the first book that I want to talk about is Gearbreakers by Zoe Hana Mikuta, and this comes out June 29th, 2021. So this book has been pitched as sort of a mix between Pacific Rim and Pierce Brown's Red Rising, which seems super exciting to me. It is a sci-fi book, and it also features Asian main characters. And basically from what I can tell in this world, there are these people called the Gondolia who have this like tyrannical rule over the land, and they have these giant mechanized weapons called wind-ups. And so the people in the Badlands have only really known war and oppression under their cruel Gondolia overlords. And so one of our main characters is Eris, who is something called a Gearbreaker. She is this young rebel who specializes in taking down the wind-ups from the inside. But when one of Eris's missions goes sideways, she finds herself in a Gondolia prison. And this is where she meets our other main character, Sona. So Sona is a cybernetically enhanced wind-up pilot, and at first it seems like these two are going to be, opposing characters, but Eris soon learns that Sona intentionally infiltrated the wind-up pilot program, in order to take down Gondolia from the inside. And so it's the story of like these two coming together to take down this like tyrannical reign, and it seems super cool. It seems like all the mashups of different sci-fi things that I love, and I think it's going to be fantastic. I've already heard really amazing things about it, and it does in fact feature a sapphic romance, so I'm very, very excited for this. Alright, the next book that I'm excited for is Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, and this one comes out July 6th, and it's by the author who wrote the Spin the Dawn series. I've heard really amazing things about that, but I have not read it myself, and from what I know, this book in particular draws on a lot of fairy tales and East Asian folklore. So from what I can tell from the description, it seems like our main character, Shiori, is the only princess of her kingdom. She has like a bunch of brothers, and she has a secret. Forbidden magic runs through her veins, and she's managed to conceal it for most of her life, but on the day of her betrothal ceremony for a marriage that she doesn't really want, she accidentally shows her magic. And so at first it seems like it might be a stroke of luck, she's no longer going to have to get married, but unfortunately it also catches the attention of her stepmother, Raikama, who initiates this sort of curse on Shiori, and she's a sorceress, Raikama, and she banishes the princess away from her land and turns her brothers into cranes. And she warns Shiori to never speak of this to anyone, because for every word that leaves her mouth, one of her brothers will die. And so this is where the description gets a little bit more complicated. Penniless, voiceless, and alone, Shiori searches for her brothers and uncovers a dark conspiracy to seize the throne. Only Shiori can set the kingdom to rights, but to do so she must place her trust in a paper bird, a mercurial dragon, and the very boy she fought so hard not to marry. And she must embrace the magic she's been taught all her life to forswear no matter the cost. That seems super, super interesting. I love that like the guy that she's supposed to marry sort of comes back later in, but it seems like this is going to be like a mashup of different fairy tales and folklore, and I just think it's going to be fantastic. So yeah, I've already heard so many people like rave about this author and about this book already, like people who have gotten arcs of this, so I'm very excited to see how this one goes. Alright, this next book is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas, and this comes out July 13th. And I'm super excited for this one because it says it's a mashup of Get Out and Holly Jackson thriller novels. So basically this follows 16-year-old Jake Livingston who can see dead people. And Jake also happens to be one of the few black students at St. Clair Prep, his school, and so he is both at the mercy of his racist teachers, but he's also at the mercy of these dead people, ghosts, who he is basically a medium for and whose final moments he sees on loop. And so things are pretty bleak, but things start to look up when another black student arrives at the school named Alistair, and it seems like Jake might have some romance on the horizon. But unfortunately for Jake, the ghosts are not going to leave him alone. Most ghosts are harmless and Jake will help them move on, but there is this ghost named Sawyer Dune who wants a lot more from Jake. And so it seems like in life, Sawyer was a troubled teen who took the lives of 6 other kids at his school before taking his own life, and Sawyer starts to sort of haunt Jake. And so Jake is sort of dealing with high school and these ghosts and Sawyer, and and this new romance, and it seems like it's gonna be amazing. I also really love this cover. Like, it just seems like the perfect like horror cover. So I'm just very excited for this entire book and to see how it goes. And I would really love to hear from any of you who have like read the arc or anything, what you thought of it. All right, this next one is one that I feel like I've been hearing about for ages because I think its pub date got moved because of COVID, but that is How We Fall Apart by Katie Zhao, and this comes out August 3rd, 2021, and this is basically, I believe, like a dark academia thriller that features Asian main characters, as you can tell from the cover, which is super exciting. But basically it says it is a YA thriller that is Crazy Rich Asians meets One of Us is Lying, when students at an elite prep school are forced to confront their secrets when one of their ex-best friends turns up dead. And so these different friends are all super shocked and don't know what to think, but things get even worse when this person named the Proctor starts anonymously incriminating all of them via social media. And so these four friends are trying to figure out who the real killer is before this person, the Proctor, reveals secrets that they really don't want to be revealed. And it just seems like it's gonna be an awesome book. Like, I just love that this is a YA thriller with Asian main characters, so I'm really excited for that aspect, but I also am like in the mood for a murder mystery, so I'm excited for this. All right, the next book is It All Comes Back to You by Farah Naz Rishi, and this comes out September 14th, 2021. So this one, I absolutely love the cover, first of all. It is super gorgeous, but I actually heard about this quite recently, and then when I read the description, I was like, this sounds fantastic. I want to read this now. And basically the reason that I'm like super into this is because it involves two exes kind of coming back together and forced into this awkward situation. So it follows two different main characters, Kieran and Dean, and so it looks like Kieran's mother has recently passed, and so she is just trying to keep her family together, her father and her sister, and spend more time with them, it seems like. But when her sister Amira announces that she's dating someone, Kieran's world is sort of turned upside down. And then we have Dean, whose brother Faisal happens to have recently found a girlfriend, and you find out that that is Amira, so Kieran's sister. And Dean is just happy that his brother has found love because there's some sort of thing that happened in their past that Dean had done to Faisal, and so he's just happy that like his brother's turning over a new leaf, it seems. And so their two families are going to meet because of Amira and Faisal's relationship. But what no one else knows in this book is that 3 years ago, Dean and Kieran had actually dated in secret, and things did not end well because Dean ghosted her. And so there seems to be some sort of backstory with Dean and like Faisal and like the reason why he broke up with Kieran or like ghosted her. And so Kieran wants to find out what happened all those years ago, but she also has like a sneaking suspicion that there's something, you know, going on with Faisal, something shady. And so she's trying to figure that out, and Dean is determined to make sure she doesn't find out. And so it seems like it's gonna be a really good book. Like, I am just so intrigued by all of this and like all of the backstory. And I just love the idea of them having dated in secret years ago and now forced into this situation because their siblings are together. So yeah, super excited for this. Like, I am just so interested by this entire situation, and I'm just ready for the angst. All right, this next book is one by one of my all-time favorite authors. She writes some of the best YA contemporary thrillers, and this book is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. And so this book comes out September 14th, 2021, and this is Get Out meets The Haunting of Hill House. So I've actually read Haunting of Hill House, the actual book from the 50s. It also has like a TV show, but I absolutely adored the book and also the TV show on Netflix. So I love this concept of like the, you know, haunted house, but I also love that it features a Black main character, and it is going to talk about sort of the racial implications of this. But yeah, I don't really know much else beyond that, but it just seems like it's gonna be like a new take on the classic haunted house story, and that just excites me so much. And just knowing that Tiffany D. Jackson is the one who's writing it makes me super excited because I love every single one of her books, like Allegedly, Monday's Not Coming, Grown, just one more that I'm like blanking on right now, but they're all fantastic, and I highly recommend if you haven't read one of her books yet. So I'm just excited to be getting a new book from her, and I also really love this cover. Like, all of the purple tones on it are just chef's kiss. All right, this next one is probably not a surprise. I think I put this on my last anticipated releases video because I didn't know when it was coming out, but it has a cover now, and that book is The Bronze Beast by Roshni Chokshi, and this is the third Gilded Wolves book. So this comes out September 21st, and as I said, it's the third Gilded Wolves book, so it is the finale to the series with all of my favorite characters and just like all my babies, you know, for the last time, and I'm like very sad about this series ending, but I'm also really excited to find out where things are going to go, because if any of you have read the second book, it was fantastic and left me with so many questions, and I am just excited for more angst and just more of these characters because they're just fantastic. Like, I love them so much and I really want them to be happy in the end, but we'll see if that actually happens. But basically, if you don't know, this series like follows a diverse cast of characters in the 19th century, and it deals with some magic and sort of implications of colonialism, and it involves like some heists as well, and a lot of history, I would say, and it's just a really fantastic series. If you're looking for like a historical fantasy version of National Treasure, this is the series for you. So yeah, I cannot wait to see how it's gonna end. And from what I know, I believe this book is set in Venice, Italy, whereas the first book was set in Paris and the second book was set in Russia. All right, this next book seems like a really interesting sci-fi, and that is Iron Widow by Sharon J. Zhao, and this comes out September 21st, 2021. So first of all, this cover is gorgeous and is probably one of the main reasons why I wanted to pick this up and why I was interested in it in the first place. But I also follow the author on Twitter and she just seems really cool and is really into like Asian history. And so this book sort of riffs off of some Asian history but is set in sort of a sci-fi landscape. And so it says it is Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale in this blend of Chinese history and mecha science fiction for YA readers. So in this world there are these things called chrysalises, which are these giant transforming robots that are meant to be used to fight off these mecha aliens that lurk beyond the Great Wall. And so this is like an Asian-inspired fantasy, and in order to operate the chrysalis, boys and girls are sort of paired up to operate them, but the girl's life force is sort of sacrificed in the effort to use these chrysalis, and so it's always like the boy sort of like kills the girl in the process of using this transforming robot thing. And so our main character, who's this 18-year-old girl, she offers her up to be one of these like concubine pilots, and she does it in order to assassinate the boy who is responsible for her sister's death. But her revenge plot has some larger implications than she even expected, and she ends up killing him through the psychic link that the pilots have, and she emerges, you know, by herself from the robot, transforming robot thing, and she is dubbed an Iron Widow. And an Iron Widow is a much feared and much silenced kind of female pilot who can sacrifice boys to power up chrysalis instead. And so in order to sort of like tame her power, they pair her up with the most famous and strong, controversial male pilot. But obviously she's not planning to go down without a fight, and so she uses their combined power to fight off all the people who are trying to kill her, but also she is trying to look into why this power structure works in a very misogynistic way, and it's trying to unravel that. So yeah, I'm just super interested by the entire concept of this book. Like, it's just so strange, but also so cool. Like, the whole Handmaid's Tale nature of it is like super cool, but also just like the way that it like involves like these mecha robot things and aliens, and just all of it just seems so interesting and cool. All right, the next one is a sequel, and that is Steel Striker by Marie Lu. So this book comes out September 28th, and it is the sequel to Sky Hunter by Marie Lu, which is a book I read last year, and it came out last year, and it was an absolutely fantastic sort of sci-fi dystopian book. I won't get too much into what it's about, but it was fantastic, and I love anything by Marie Lu, so I will pick up anything that she writes, and so this one was no different. It wasn't like my favorite of her books, but it was definitely really good, and I'm interested to see where it's gonna go. I feel like the series has a lot of potential to do a lot of things. All right, this next one, I absolutely love the cover, and that is You've Reached Sam by Dustin Thau. So this book comes out November 2nd, 2021, and it is pitched as a mix between If I Stay and Your Name, the like anime movie by Makoto Shinkai. And I absolutely love that movie. Like, it's one of my all-time favorite movies ever, and it just like makes me cry every time I watch it, so I know this book is gonna like tear me apart. But basically this follows a relationship between this girl named Julie. She's 17 years old and she has a boyfriend named Sam, and she's basically like planned out her life and, you know, is really excited to be with her boyfriend in the future, and then Sam dies. And so everything changes, and desperate to sort of hear his voice again, she calls his number just to like listen to the voicemail, and to her surprise, Sam actually picks up. So he is sort of talking to her even after he has died, and they are getting the chance to say that one last goodbye that they never got to before. And so obviously there's like a magical element to this book, but I am just so interested by this, and I feel like this is the book that's gonna like wreck me just like Your Name did, and I just love this idea of like the second chance at a goodbye. So I'm just so curious of how this is gonna go, and yeah, I'm just like not ready for my heart to be broken, but I also want it to be broken by this book. Alright, this next book is one by an author that I really like, but I'm not actually sure how this one is gonna go, so I'm curious to see if I'm gonna like it. And that is Gilded by Marissa Meyer. So Marissa Meyer wrote like a bunch of like fairy tale retellings with like these different characters in the Lunar Chronicles that sort of like was a overarching series altogether, but each book was like a different fairy tale. So this book is a standalone, but it is similar to those books in the sense that it is another fairy tale retelling. And this one is a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, which I thought was super cool, because I think in the fairy tale this girl is like forced to spin gold from hay, and like it's based on some sort of rumor, and so she's visited by this person named Rumpelstiltskin who helps her create gold from hay each night in exchange for different things, and I think one of them ends up being like her firstborn child. So I'm just really interested by this concept. I don't remember like the entire fairy tale, and it seems like this is going to involve some sort of romance between the girl and Rumpelstiltskin, so I'm quite interested by this because I feel like most versions of the fairy tale sort of portray Rumpelstiltskin as this like very evil character and sort of as this gremlin goblin type person, so I'm interested to see how she's gonna do her take of this fairy tale. Alright, and the final book that I want to talk about is actually another sequel, and that is Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. And this comes out November 16th, and it is the sequel to These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So that book came out I think earlier this year or in 2020, and I absolutely loved it. It is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but set in 1920s Shanghai between these like rivaling gangs. So the Scarlet Gang, which is like this Chinese gang, and then the White Flowers, which is this Russian gang. And so it follows our main characters, Roma and Juliet, and it was fantastic. So I'm really interested to see where it's going to go in the second book. I do feel like the first book was less focused on the romance and more sort of on the mystery and things going on, because there is this mysterious plague and sickness running around Shanghai and a monster involved. So that was really, really interesting. So I'm curious to see how all of that is going to continue in the next book, and also see if we're going to get some like more romance between the two characters, because they definitely have a very like angsty relationship. So I am very excited for that. All right, but those are all of the books that I wanted to talk about today. I feel like there's definitely probably a book or two or five that I've likely missed or forgotten about to mention, so definitely let me know if you feel like there's something that's coming out later this year that you think I probably would enjoy. I would love to hear from all of you, and I would love to hear from you guys what books on this list that you guys are also excited for, or if you have like read any of the earlier ones like in a review copy form, an early ARC form. I would love to hear your thoughts about them and if you think I'll enjoy them. Thank you so much for watching. Go check out my Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads in the description down below, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that the story ain't over. Bye!